Wear my crazy 90-degree shorts today. Everybody cranks the AC. 70, just about 70 in here. Wear my crazy 90-degree shorts today. Everybody cranks the AC. Just about 70 in here. Wear my crazy 90-degree shorts today. Everybody cranks the AC. All right. Hello, Internet. We're going to sort this out, but there we go. We're live. Good enough. Stop that hideous feedback loop. And we have this wonderful green bar in the middle of the screen again today. Terrific. Okay. I think we've got a couple minutes until actual class. But if you want a head start on today, one of the first things we're going to do today is I encourage everyone to get a domain name. Let's do it for real today, because we're going to want to actually hook up, if we can, we're going to want to hook up HTTPS, get actual certificates, which allow us to secure communications with the domain name. And the proper way to do that is to find a domain name. And this is, you can have a .me domain name as part of the student pack. And they waived the first year fee. So I would recommend doing that. I'm gonna go to Namecheap. And sign in. So Chrome saved my password. I just signed up for a Namecheap yesterday, and I bought this domain called gus.cool. And it was $6 or something, $5 for the first year. They try to hook you with like cheap first year promotions, or in your case, free first year promotions. And then it's like $20-something. Some domains you can buy for, $10,000 or something absurd. I wouldn't recommend paying that much for a domain. So anyway, if you go to Namecheap, if you make a brand new account, you should be able to, or just go to the site, you should be able to search for a domain. And I think I would like to walk through the whole process right here. I think this is a good thing for everyone to do. It doesn't matter what you're hosting on, or if you already have a domain, you don't need to do this. So who already has a domain of some kind? Okay. Okay. I guess it's an option for people to skip this step entirely, because you can, if you're running an Amazon server, you can just point people to the URL that Amazon gives you, and it's some long thing .amazon.com. If you do a Heroku app, which is actually a very good alternative, they'll give you a URL that's like something.herokuapp.com. And it's actually not that uncommon to see apps live for a while there. I mean, I think it's probably a good idea to go through this exercise, because this is something that is pretty common, and any kind of real thing that you're going to want to build, you're going to want to have a domain name for it, and you're going to want to know how to wire that up with DNS and know how to wire that up with HTTPS. Yeah. I feel like you should be doing this for your capstone right now. You should be deciding on, you should have already decided on a domain. Doesn't matter that much. Don't worry about picking the wrong one. And I feel like this server you can use for your capstone if you want to. And if you don't want to use this kind of setup for your capstone, I would probably recommend use something that's the easiest possible thing to set up, because if you unless you want to do all of this again for your capstone and you're not doing it right now, I would recommend doing it the easiest possible way, which is going to be probably just some very straightforward hosted solution like Heroku or like something Amazon offers, which is not as, you don't have as good of a deal on the free for that though.
Eventually, my capstone, I want to push it out to like Google Play Store where I do. But I'm gonna have to change it right.
Okay.
And let the domain. Right now, it's like a web
Right.
app. But
I mean, like, I think it's possible to have the Heroku app just be your app forever. It's like a little bit more kind of, I don't know, it doesn't look as professional, I suppose. If you want to sort of have this grow into a serious business, you might have to change it at some point. But I mean, you wouldn't really need a domain name for any of that. But I would recommend getting a domain name no matter what you use to build it, because you can hook up that domain name to anything.
I have the 3 keys. It goes to my slot.
Okay, but you don't want to reuse the same. What is that domain? Like, do you want to?
Just my name.
Okay, so you probably want to pick a name for what you're building, and I think that's what I kind of want to do today or right away. Is that, because that's kind of important. It's a big step that I think everybody should take, and I think I should try to push people towards taking this step, because this is kind of important, and it's sort of a step that I think makes a lot of sense in the evolution of these projects. I think it'll look better on your capstone if you have an actual domain name hooked up to it, and you're able to say not only this is you have a 3D targeting what is it called? What is the name of your project?
It's just a 3D archer's work.
Okay, so you could have 3D archery scorekeeper dot whatever,
right,
and that's where you go. It looks very good. It looks very professional. So I would definitely recommend that. Anyway, we're kind of like gonna just slide our way into class here. So I don't know if we should wait for anyone else or get started with the slides. Today we are going to be doing the last parts of our server. First of all, we're going to get it to work because it currently was broken at the end of last class. We're going to add some things called environment variables, which are ways to have the server store settings and values and things that the server should own and should not be in your GitHub. Things like passwords and configuration for your database, stuff like that. We're going to use a tool called Systemctl to set up our server to run every time the server restarts. So it should just automatically, when you do upgrades or when you do any maintenance on your server, you should always be running your web application on there. We're going to add a thing called Nginx, which is a sort of a pre-server. It goes in front of your server and then forwards traffic to it. And then we're going to actually be doing HTTPS setup so that we can secure all the traffic that goes to our site. A lot of browsers these days, if your site doesn't have HTTPS, not only will they warn users about it, but sometimes they will not even allow users to go to it, or they'll definitely warn people about it, I don't know. Is there an example of a site that doesn't have HTTPS? That's a
MSN. I think.
Really? Oh no, that's got HTTP.
Well, it might. Chrome might default to HTTPS.
Oh. They either redirect or Chrome redirects.
Yeah. That was the last one I knew of because they had a Reddit post or a Stack Overflow question. They had specifically asked if there was something that they could use without HTTPS because they had to test something. They may change that.
So Chrome is going to put a thing here if you're not on HTTPS that says not secure. And if there's a misconfiguration or some problem, it may put up a block in front of people to say, this looks fishy, you know. And so it's a very good practice to not have either of those be a problem, especially if you want your site to be discoverable on Google or through internet searches. It helps the ranking of your site if it has things like this enabled. And also, I mean, the practical reason is that it prevents anyone from basically spying on the traffic that's going back and forth between browsers or clients and your web server. So it's, you know, it's pretty important to get it running, and we're going to go through the most normal, basic way of doing that on a web server today. It's a lot easier than it used to be. Okay. So I'm going to buy a domain name, and I'm encouraging everyone to go through this with me and pick a domain name, buy it right now, today, right now. Okay. What is it? Okay. Oh, okay. So it's like a personal site. Cool. Okay. What's your capstone going to be at?
My capstone is sensoryfriendlysearch.com.
Okay. Hover. Okay. So have you wired that up to a server yet? Okay. Hover is a .com, right? It's a domain registry. You bought it through Hover. So I would log into Hover right now and get ready, because the second half of this will have steps that are the same, pretty much the same. They'll look a little bit different, but they'll be pretty much the same on every domain name registry. So we're going to namecheap.com. This is one of the things that your student pack has, a free offer. Is everybody able to access the student pack and the offers that are there? It's the one where you get a .me free, promotion. I don't have the student pack. There are domains you can buy for like $2 or $3 or something that are just really, you know, sort of back alleys of the internet, like very obscure names you could buy for very cheap. So like I don't know, marketing or no, I think some of those are surprisingly expensive. Like dentist is really expensive. Anyway, I already know I found a name. I'm going to say gus.venture. And my name is very uncommon, so I have all kinds of these cool, oh no, invalid top level domain. No way. I just saw it. Hold on. I'm just going to say Gus. Oh.
It's also important to read over your domain names a little bit carefully before you purchase them. Otherwise, you could end up with pennisland.com.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, it says here I can buy Gus.best for $2.99 a year, but retail is $90 a year. Is that okay? I don't know. That's a good option, I guess. Let's see. 400 additional extensions. $2 or less. These are not $2. Fun.
Yes.
So there's also, if you want to find a name that's similar to your name, go on namecheap.com and there's this button here next to the search box. It says beast mode. Try that because this actually will help you find open domains that are similar or not exact, or use little hacks to put part of the word in the domain and other things like this. And it says price range, you can make it only to $20 or $10 maybe. And I'll say, let's say 3D archery. Put both of those in. This is like for Karen's project. And oh, we can add use domain hacks, drop last vowel, pluralize nouns. That's weird. Hide unavailable, and don't even show premiums because they'll be too expensive. And then select all TLDs over here. So this will basically search through all kinds of TLDs. You'll probably find a decent one if you look for this. And there's 3D beer for $5 a year. That's terrific. That's the only one that's, wait a minute. Maybe most of them are more than $10. I'm gonna just, I don't know how that we would do that. You have no idea where a thermostat is or whether this room has its own or anything. Oh, it's over by the door. All right, the thermostat doesn't seem to work. I'm gonna message Beverly. I don't know if anyone's still here though. We could message Jesse, but I don't know if he would know.
He's a shot.
Okay.
It is pretty cold.
Wait, I'm on the. Oh. Hey. Hi, Dana. Cool. Techoverlay.com. Did you buy that on Namecheap? Letter answer on that. Okay, so is this something everybody's gonna be okay with doing today? Buying a domain name or finding one? Okay. The GitHub thing. Okay, and you've told Jesse about this? And it did the same thing?
Yeah, my GitHub did the same thing. I was able to try the GitHub message.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? I'll just buy a bunch of cheap extra ones if you don't want to bother right now. We can hook them up to your servers if you want. There's a bunch of really cheap ones. If you want to go ahead, I mean, I'm sure you can get reimbursed for it, but
Oh yeah. Who wants the domain?
you could get reimbursed for it. Do you have a bunch of domains?
Yeah. I can give you subdomains. I can just buy a bunch of .zone domains because they're like
Zone?
$2.
What's the cheapest one?
Zone is $4.48 right now.
Cool.
I just bought Alice.zone.
I'm gonna buy Gus.zone. Oh, make an offer. Someone beat
somebody
me
already
to it.
owns Gus.
All right, I'm adding Gus.best because that's pretty fun.
That's good.
And what happened to Gus.venture? That sounds cool.
It's not venture top of the domain there?
I totally found it on here.
Huh. What's up, Ventures?
Oh, Ventures,
Yeah.
right. Okay. Nobody buy it, it's mine. Okay, so I'm gonna buy a couple of domains here, and I have a couple more if anybody needs a spare one for now. Okay, cool, it's in my cart. So I have 2 new.
I think it's Namecheap specific. Then yeah.
It's Namecheap specific.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's like, so there's like Internet Authority and they say what the real top level domains are, but other companies like Namecheap can sell their own versions of it. It just means you couldn't like easily transfer your domain to a different company if you wanted to leave Namecheap for some reason. But it should work just fine like any other domain. So there's a lot of fun ones. There's like .zone, .pizza, .pizza.
Oh, I want my personal website to be Caitlin.com.
Yeah, you can do that.
You might be able to
That would be
catch.
super fun.
Well, are you looking for it right now?
Well,
I
not
did,
better stuff.
I did.
No.
I have a boring .dev one.
I actually own the domain philosophy.beer.
Nice.
I feel like that's pretty. Yeah.
I feel like it would get someone's attention.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna check out. Where is this? Oh, where is this? Where's my cart?
It's underneath the Zoom thing, I think.
Oh, there it is. View cart. Ooh, ASPX. That's a Microsoft Active Server page. Very nice. Okay. So I'm not going to renew any of these. This one's $90. I think these are going to expire after a year, probably. Confirm order. So I already put in my credit card. I was trying this the other day. Wait a minute. Oh, I have to be in the other. I'm logged in over here. Okay, whoops, give me 1 second. What was it? Best? Very fun. Okay, $10. That's fair enough. Don't auto renew anything, please, because I don't want a surprise charge for $90 in a year. Okay. So I already put in my credit card, so you're gonna have to put in your credit cards in order to do this, or whatever the GitHub thing, however that's supposed to work. I would disable automatic renewal because they'll warn the crap out of you. They'll send you a million emails when it's going to expire anyway, and you might as well just know when you're paying for it again if you do. Credit card was not approved. Oh, what the heck? This site does not seem as good as everyone seems to say, but it's not bad.
Yeah. I feel like most things it was really good and it's slightly gone downhill.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's too late, I think. All right, well, it seems to have worked finally, so whatever. Okay. So I am now the owner of these domain names, which is, yes. Yeah. If you're using Express and everything, you're going to want node.js. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. I have to consult with. I don't know how much you know about Heroku and Node and Mongo and Postgres and what's the typical pattern of setting up a Node server on that, or I mean, that's not something I've ever done actually. It's do you get a separate app to be your database, or do you run your database on the same app?
Usually you run your database on a different stack.
Okay.
Or a different dyno, I guess is what they call it. But they do have a hosted Postgres service now.
Okay.
That is pretty inexpensive. That's if you want to use Heroku, that's the one you're gonna have to use, regardless of where you got to put your database.
Cool. Okay. So that's my domain name. Now I'm going to hook up one of these to the server that we set up yesterday. So the next step is going to be to go over to Amazon and go to this EC2 page. This is the same page that everybody was using yesterday. Again, you can click services, click EC2, type EC2, it'll bring you here. And then the running instances link will send you to this list. I need to okay, so Dana, if you want, you can set up the DNS records for the site you purchase to point to an Amazon server or any other server, because I'm not sure if the hosting that you purchased has the ability to run node apps or connect to databases. But set up a calendar appointment if you want to walk through, any of that setup with me. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here is get what's called an elastic IP address, or we need a stable place to point our domain name to say, go here for this domain name. So in the list on the left here, there's a thing called elastic IPs. We're going to click on that. We're going to say allocate new address. And this is all, leave it default, allocate. So it says you're succeeded, here's your IP address. You can close. And then the list will now have this new IP address in it. And you want to control and click on this and say associate address. Leave this as instance, and then all you have to do is select an instance and find the one that you started yesterday. It should be the only one. And then associate. And it says succeeded, and then you have to click close. It's whatever. So then you go back up to the top here to instances. And if you saw that IP address from earlier, it's the new, it's what your instance now has as its IP address. With these now, we can tell our domain name at whatever registrar you bought it at. It doesn't have to be Namecheap. It could be, sorry, I forgot the one you bought it at, Kelly, but Hover or Hostinger. Anyway, somewhere in the settings of those is going to be a very similar page, which is Manage DNS or Advanced DNS. I'm going to find it on Namecheap, and we'll do this right now to hook one up. But if you want help with your own domain name service, again, ask for it. I'm like logged in on a different, I don't want to break anything, so I'm going to like keep this window open. If we go to dashboard, so there is domain list. So here's a bunch of, I have 14 days left to verify contact info. I'll have to click on this at some point. It just sends you an email. You have to click the email link to verify. When you set up your first domain, it might, in all of your account setups, it will say you need a primary contact for the domain. You need the address and everything. This is why you'd probably want to select or purchase what's called Who is Privacy. It's selected by default here. It's selected by default in most of these registrars, and it's free in Namecheap and a lot of them. That's basically like you pay the sort of mafia that controls this whole thing an extra little bribe so they don't put your contact information on the internet in the public registry of all of the websites, and people will spam you. So it's sort of a little bit of extortion, like so many things in the world, but it's definitely worth it. And it's free, but a lot of them, it's like kind of silly because it's now free and everybody does it. So do the privacy, Who is Privacy, or Privacy Guard, or whatever it's called. Okay, so we're gonna go to gus.best, and we'll say manage. And it's a fairly slow Microsoft ASPX app, I guess. It's taking a while to load. Meanwhile, I'm going to take a look at my little cheat sheet that I made here because I want to get these right. This is how they should end up. You should put the long one as a CNAME with www, and you should put the number, the IP address, as an A with the @ And you can create these on just about any hosting provider. This is all under the advanced DNS section. So we're going to go right there. Select, sorry. Select what?
When you do the three things with GitHub, it comes up with a screen that asks you to select either GitHub pages or exposure.
I have no idea what that means.
GitHub pages.
Okay, yeah, GitHub pages.
Because actually when I was or something, and I asked Max the other day, and he said that was another good.
If you're hosting just a website with like JavaScript on it, and you can host your front ends like this, and I think maybe this is the way we would want to host all of our front ends, is just do a GitHub pages, because it's so easy. For anything that's not high traffic, GitHub won't care, and you can make it very easily. So maybe that's why I'm not sure why it's asking you to do that when you sign up for your domain.
I think it just would give you some hosting somewhere.
Okay.
Sorry, what domain show is it through Hover or through? Oh, Namecheap. Okay. Yeah, you can definitely change your DNS later to point at something else. I think that's just for now, just to get you started.
Okay, so I clicked Advanced DNS once I went to the manage of the new domain that I bought. I clicked Advanced DNS, and here's these two entries. This one should be changed to be
it's for photos.
an A record. No, wait. I need to refer to my cheat sheet again. This one should stay a CNAME, and this one should change to an A record. Okay. And we need to put in the two things from Amazon here. So they are, just be sure you did that first step with the Elastic IP and you associated it, because you want to have this IP actually owned by you. You don't want to halfway through end up redirecting to whoever Amazon gives it to next because they rotated it out, or because your server restarted. It's not super likely, but if you have to recreate your server, you're going to want to be able to keep that IP address so you don't have to reset up your domain name and everything. So I'm going to double check. The Elastic IP does exist. It has this. If I go back to instances, it's these. So I'm going to copy this first one.
Sorry, just one caveat to the Elastic IP.
Yes.
So it's free as long as it's associated with a EC2 instance, but if you say delete your EC2 instance, but didn't delete your Elastic IP, you get charged for it. So just make sure it's always assigned to some server.
Right.
If you're not going to have server for a long time, just delete the static IP or the Elastic IP.
Yeah, so as long as you're on the free tier and your server is running on the free tier, then and the Elastic IP is associated with it, thank you, then it's all free, yes. Otherwise, they'll charge you a small amount every hour, but it's not a whole lot, but you don't want to be charged that, yeah. Okay. So I copied this first top, the public DNS IPv4. And I'm going to paste it here in the top one. It's a CNAME, www, and this thing. And then the A, this I changed to an A record. And I'm going to copy the IP address from immediately below it. And these you can leave alone. So I'll say save all changes. And the last thing we need to do, so we're done with name chief. Once you get to this step and you've pointed this to the place and you pointed both of these and you've done it correctly, maybe leave it up to make sure that you got it right. But that's going to be the last thing you have to do on your domain registrar at all, because now we're actually sending everybody who's looking for the domain I just bought, gus.best, we're sending them to this IP address that we have reserved at Amazon servers. So it's going to land on the server, and everything from that point forward is our Ubuntu server that we can configure.
I have
two A records. Did you change one of them to a CNAME? So you really need.
So
I think the record should be the same on every I always forget. That's why I had to take a screenshot of it. The A record has the IP address.
Yes.
No. Yes. And yes.
Yes.
CNAME has the long thing. A has the short thing. CNAME has www as the second thing. The A has the @ symbol, and that's just the standard. That's just the standard way. There's all kinds of crazy stuff you can do with DNS. I don't know any of it really. I have to look it up every time. Okay. So the last thing, once we have that working, we can just check that our server is actually at the other end of our domain, our new domain name. And then let's do a couple more topics today.
yes, now we got to create your domain or your DNS records.
So yeah, we haven't set up enough. So there's something this is answering that. And in fact, our security group actually is locking those ports that it's trying to use. So we need to do.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's not record. That's yeah. Okay. Did you get to the part where you created the elastic type there? Okay. So to do that, we go to there. Create elastic type piece. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah. That'd be like if you owned your own IP or block space, you have to say. Yeah. You can scale. Price is not just actually click actions you want to talk
I do.
Oh, sorry, no, we're,
This is.
I thought we were looking at here. Oh, you can still the blue attached to it. Oh, no, that's in the test metrics, right?
I do, but like, it's.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay. Go back to, instances under.
These are set up, then if I go to like.
Okay.
I see, but yeah, it's not gonna interfere. Like, I don't know what that is, or why I did it without.
Maybe it was like
Yeah.
default configuration. Sorry, it just sets up the defaults for you.
Here's what it's done. Okay, alright, we'll see what happens. Because it shows me like the readme file.
It might stop working.
There, sorry.
Okay.
We're gonna do a couple more steps. You should see something there.
If it doesn't work, then I'll figure it out.
Oh, associated. That's okay. Okay, there we go.
So you should be good. It might take a while to.
Okay, so now you go back to instances.
Find a domain. Yeah, that would come to it right now.
Zero is going to be darker combination. The third column space. There's a good option. Security check. No, just leave this.
Okay.
Point this needles.
How is everyone doing on the internet?
Well, no, sorry.
Okay, Dana, yeah, you should be able to find the same settings somewhere where it's the A record and the CNAME record. And like message me or we'll, maybe tomorrow if we can make sure it's all set up. The next parts are going to somewhat rely on it, but you can go back to the video too. Okay.
Yep, but don't we need this area? Just need to choose.
All right. So the next thing let's do is pretty much immediately let's SSH back into our servers. So if we're back on our Amazon page, we copy this. It might be a good idea to make a shortcut for running this. It might be a good idea to make a script that's a shortcut for running this. So I think we'll do that today. And if you follow these instructions, now that we have a stable IP address, this script, you should just be able to use it to log in whenever you want. And this will get you into your server. So you're going to copy the, okay. You're going to copy the IPv4 public DNS entry here. And we can just open, can you do code something? So we could do code tilde slash, and I'm going to say login.sh. And mine might break. Yeah, so if you do that, does VS Code come up? Mine might be just broken. All right, well.
I guess leave this one alone. Sorry.
Oh, you said.
And change that. And change that to use the.
Okay. Why are you broken?
All right, that didn't really work, but just in VS Code, it doesn't matter, do new file. And we're gonna say hash sign, exclamation sign, /bin/bash. And this is our way to start a shell script. This will let us run this thing from the command line, and we can make reusable calls to stuff. In this case, this will let us log in without having to remember that big long thing every time. Dana, I know you probably have already copied it somewhere. You have it on like a clipboard, but that is this is a similar way to do that. Oh, Jaquay's here. Could someone?
I can go let her.
Okay. I'm going to pause for a bit because we have people on the way. Takir, one thing you should do other than buying a domain. Oh, do you have an Amazon server running yet? We should just do it on Saturday. Okay, cool.
Oh,
All right. Back to Visual Studio Code, just do a new file. Do this # exclamation bin bash. And then we just put the command that we always keep typing. So it's SSH-I tilde/. Now you're going to need to know the name of your key. It's .ssh, and mine is called CIC Amazon key.pem. Ubuntu and then paste what you got from the internet. So if you don't know what this is called, you can go to, you can run this command in your terminal, ls ~.ssh. And this will print out, I have a whole lot of them, but it will print out the names of your keys in that folder. Okay.
Generally a good idea, but.
So that's all you need in this file. SSH-I, the path to your key file, and Ubuntu at this host name. You can save this. Save it wherever you want. I'm going to put it in my documents folder, I suppose, and I'm going to call it login.sh. Cool. And now I'm going to go back to a terminal, and I'm going to say chmod +x ~doc tab, complete it to documents, and then login. This makes it executable. And now you're all set. All you have to do to log in, you should have to do is /documents login. And you can even move it to just your home folder if you don't want to type documents too. I get a new warning because we made a new Elastic IP. You should get this warning again because it's like we don't recognize this new IP. You have to say yes again. Did it work?
It said permission denied.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not like it's across all.
Made one key. That one has a 2 in it.
Yeah. Yep, because I deleted the first one that we did originally.
Databases are terabyte size.
Right.
But this is
No, that seems totally correct.
Oh, no, it's not.
Oh,
Hold on.
jeez.
I forgot the SSH.
I hope that audio didn't screw up.
Wait, I know what I did. I know what I did. There we go. That worked.
Okay. So you should, if you run that login file, you should immediately see your login prompt.
that'll take you longer. Pretty good with that. So you're already plugged. If you want to read, I can help you. But yeah. So something gets to the lot of stuff yesterday. They had $10 million.
Right now, yeah.
Anytime in the next weekend, or I tried doing a video yesterday. There's a lot of pauses. Basically setting up our servers to run on Amazon.
Oh, yes, for sure.
It's a very common kind of cloud server service.
Future. Postgres.
So easy. You know about
Export your data. Export.
Cool.
I guess it.
Magic Sync.
You know, you want to get to project.
We can do it in an hour. Like even trying to solve it is there. Making sure everybody's got it.
So,
But there's also a bunch of slides and stuff. And,
Postgres in there. I think that was the thing that was like, that was close to 10 million. It's just like post it so you don't have to change. It's like,
remember last time we ran the exam?
hopefully we're out. Did you see when we did it?
Because we did that last time.
Yes. For relational
Database is a long one or short.
and let us Amazon is hosting.
All good, Kaylin?
Yeah.
Cool.
Create a Postgres. Postgres. So what this is doing is just, you don't have to do the setups that, you just gotta sign in Postgres. So they manage everything.
Okay. So we've logged in and there's 2 more things to do and we should be able to see our server on our actual domain name do something. It'll be an error page, but it will be something. The first is we're gonna do sudo apt install nginx, nginx. This is something we'll talk about very soon, but this is it's sort of like a pre-server which goes in front of our server and handles things like encryption, compression, sort of standard web stuff. Very easy to set up in our case, but this will give us just an error page right away that we can look at and see that our server is actually working. So just let this run. It'll say, do you want to continue? Do a capital Y. Let that go. And the second thing we have to do is go to our security group. So remember, we highlight our server here. We go down to this security group, and we need to tell it to allow the normal HTTP port. And that normal port is port 80. So if you go to inbound, I'm going to edit these. And I'm actually going to delete the 3000 one because we're not going to need that anymore now that we have a domain name. It's the security group. So
No. Go ahead.
So
I know.
we're going to go to inbound. We're going to edit. Remove the 3000 line here. And then add one, and pick HTTP from this list. And it'll fill in everything for you. And we can add a second one, might as well right now, and pick HTTPS. You generally are going to want both of these. Even though eventually we'll only be redirecting people to HTTPS, we still need them both to be open. So just leave these all default, and that's all you have to do. Save that. Now, if we did all of this right, at this point, or very soon after this point, because the DNS stuff the domain name will take a while to associate. It has to propagate to different servers. But if, we're doing this in the Northeast, and yeah, you see it. Cool. So I'll do gus.best. And I see my nginx page. So this is good. This is great. This means I now have this URL, and it's pointing to my Amazon server, and I can do whatever I want on that server, put whatever I want on that server. It will connect to port 80 by default, always. And notice how it says not secure. And that's going to be the case until we do, a little bit later, we'll do a setup today to make it secure. It's very easy to do, and it's going to use nginx to handle that part of it for us. So that is working now. And I think we're ready to go through our slides for today and then do the rest of it. Okay.
It can, yeah, generally. So usually, you have two kinds
Yeah.
of folders. Yeah, public or sandbox, HTML images, some that doesn't need server, and then there's source. Usually, yeah, SRC. That's very good. Like your server.js or security. So when you do that, sure. And you're going to want to leave that one alone because that lets you log in. Yeah, so that's the right thing. And select HTTP. Do it again. Select So how did you get this folder?
It created it for me.
So now if you wired up your domain name to this, you should be able to go your domain name.
Wait, it created all that.
Did you run the install Nginx command on the server?
That's a great question. I've never used that. Usually when that happens, so much. Build this.
Oh, you lost it. Oh, because we changed the IP address. This might not work. Why don't you change
Is there a way to install conditions? Oh, okay, yeah.
Like it created everything. Yeah.
So what that looks like, that's like what it would go inside the code modules folder. Fire versus whatever. No, it's gonna should the try to change.
Yes, it's a different IP. So, yes, from there, you need to leave it. But yeah, so the new one, okay, so you choose that, you can't highlight the term. Sorry, you gotta look for the arrow keys and wait for option here. Option right here. Right there. Now that's and then new one right after once you pass it. Did you see that?
Okay. Sure. Oh.
So, this year. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure, like, I don't know enough about it. I could do this for the entire office. Because I feel like we're doing Jesse Dempsey, learning Heroku, and maybe we should. Yeah, it's probably still easy even with if there's a 2.1 per day. Probably still less stuff. This is good. This is important to learn. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
So we have Nginx error page. It just means it's installed and it's working and it's answering our requests. Okay, we're going to do the rest of the setup to get this thing a full-on Express server, which is doing everything that we expect it to do. The first thing is using environment variables. This is these are variables which are set up to exist on the server and to be owned by the server and then to be filled into your code. And this is where you'd put something like a password or a configuration setting that's, you know, the production database. The production server would have an environment variable that points to the production database and the password for that production database. You wouldn't check the password in to your GitHub, to your source code. You would have this live on the server. You might want to keep a backup in case you lose your server. That's a very good idea. You definitely want to back this up, but you don't want to put that in your GitHub. You don't want to deploy it everywhere. You want to run something like this in order to set up your server once, and then every time you deploy your code to the server, it should insert those environment variables somewhere in the code so that it can connect to the actual database it's supposed to connect to. And then locally, you can set it up so locally you can still use whatever configuration you want to connect to the database. We're going to configure this. Our server will have a file pretty much like this. It'll be in the home ubuntu.bash profile folder, and it will have these lines in it. It will say database dialect Postgres. We don't really need that one, but if you wanted to have different servers use different kinds of databases, but we'll put the host of the database we set up. The port is the normal port. We'll put the user and password as each line here is a different environment variable. Also, I think this is wrong. This should be export on each of these. I believe that matters. Oh, really? Ah, boy. I'm going to need to make the font smaller or it's going to wrap different lines. Okay, come on. So it's going to look like this. Each variable will be exported in a file like this. And then we'll just keep this on our server. This will stay on our server. When we deploy code, nothing will touch this, and we'll still be able to connect to the same database. So is there anything that I can help with right now?
It's kind of a separate.
Okay.
If you want to
it's kind of hard to talk when there's or listen, I imagine. All right. This file will set up just like this. I'm going to copy all of this because this has my setup. And I'm going to just whoops, get out of this terminal so I don't accidentally use it. I'm going to just set this stuff all in a file on the server one time. That's the only time we have to do it. So I'm going to say nano tilde/dot bash underscore profile. And here we're going to say export what was the first one? No, export is not capital, sorry. Export database dialect equals Postgres. Export database host equals, we'll come back to that one. Export database port equals 5432, that's the default Postgres port. Export database user, and this, I think mine was root, and export database password equals, I'll have to look that one up too. So these last two I'll fill in by looking at my Amazon config for the database itself, and that is in the service called RDS. This is a database service. Here's my Postgres instance. I can copy this endpoint, and this will be the host of the database host. And I'm not sure if you can recover the password, which is why you really do want to have saved that password. And I did save it in my Sublime text file. I was going to go through an exercise of setting up LastPass today just to demonstrate. I highly recommend getting something like LastPass, because it won't only help you store passwords for accounts. You can put things like your database password in there, and it's a nice vault. It's a locker for those types of things. So it's good for more than just your logins. It's good for your database password too, and it'll help you generate them and so forth. But I don't know if we have time. I don't want to lose time on that today. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it here. That's my database. And then the password is somewhere in my Sublime text file. Super important database password. Here it is. This is not a good practice. Get LastPass. Okay, so we have database host, dialect, port, user, and password. And so now I'm going to do Control X. It'll ask save modified buffer. I'll say Y. File name to write. That's good. I'll hit enter. Okay. Now we have this environment variable file. How do we actually use this in our application? And so what I'm going to do for some of this is we'll fix up the application so that it works, unlike it did yesterday. We will add the stuff that uses the environment variable, and then I'm going to zip it up all over again in another tarball and overwrite whatever's on the server, because it's pretty easy to do, and doing it a lot is good. You should get comfortable with this kind of thing, because it would be a maintenance task that you're going to do a lot, especially if you don't have a CI server automatically deploying for you, especially if you're deploying all of your code yourself. Okay, so I'm going to delete this old archive. We'll go to chat room ORM. The error that we saw yesterday, I'm still not entirely sure what it is, but it has to do with the fact that we uncommented this. Something about how we set it up with the migrations. It's like Sequelize is like, too bad, you're stuck with migrations now. There's some weird thing that goes on with the models. Good luck solving that bug. I'm kind of mad about it, but we have to comment this out, and we have to run the migrations manually. So we're going to have to do that, which is a bummer. I can add like Sequelize won't even work like this anymore. Horrible. It's something about the models, and I'm gonna keep looking to try to figure out what it is. But it's something about the way we've defined these models and how they're, and it's some undocumented bug, which is real shame. But anyway, we have to comment out this automatic sync thing, and we have to use migrations. Okay. The other thing I'm going to do is in this config, I'm going to leave alone development and test, but I'm going to edit the production so that we don't have to edit this once we have it up on the server. And I'll check this into GitHub pretty soon, so you don't have to do all of this. But if we add a thing called process.env, I'm on my server now, but I can demonstrate this. I go to node, and I have it on the server. So there's a thing called process. There's a thing called process.env. And if we do process.env.database host, we won't actually see it yet. But if I were to quit, you don't have to follow all of this. Whoops, Control C, C, C. If I were to exit, log out, and then run my login script again, log back in, it's not green anymore because of the login script. Oh no, or because of something. I like that green thing. All right. Well, it says Ubuntu at here. If I do this again, node, and then process.env.database host, we get back a string, which is what we just set up in that file. So that's because we put that file in a special place called home folder /.bash profile. This is something which is going to be executed or importing everything in there into our environment every time we log in. And there's a way to do that explicitly with any file, but this, by convention, the file called bash profile does that every time you log in. So we automatically get this, which is very nice. And what's more, because we're in node land, we can just copy this and use this same convention right in our setup. So when we import and we're going to set up, we can say our username is this. Oh boy. We can't say it here because this is a JSON file. So we need to actually go here and find where it imports the config. And instead of any of this nonsense, we'll just get rid of it. And we'll say the database, this is database. Oh, we need database name. We need one more thing. We have database user. We have database password. We have database host. And we have database dialect. So as long as we're loading this, we don't need this dbconfig nonsense. I can get rid of that. I'll leave these in place even though we're not using them. Moment and whatever. And I'm going to delete this whole folder because this is silly. If we're developing locally, now you should set these environment variables. So wherever you set these environment variables, it will read them from wherever you run it currently. So, all we need to do to run it locally now would be to set the same environment variables we set in the server, but set them to a local database or something else. And then we can set up a testing environment where we connect to a testing database, and we substitute in different values for those variables. But our code will read them from whatever environment it's running in. So that's all that we need to change in the code. And I'm going to check the bash profile. We have dialect, host, port. Oh, we don't have port at all because we just use the default port. So I'm going to replace this line with database name, which in my case is called chat room because this is the chat room app. Okay, I'm going to do Control X, save, yes, enter. And now we should be able to deploy this new code, and it should read the values from our bash profile file without any trouble. And then we don't. This means every time we deploy, we don't have to go and set the database password manually, and it means we don't have to check in our database password into GitHub or somewhere where we keep our code, because as long as everybody sets this up themselves, really all you have to set up is the bash profile file. And then if you download the code I made, you should be able to run it on your server and connect to your database. And it should all work. So I'm going to pull or commit use environment variables for chat room or app. going to push. And if you pull the sandbox, this will be all you have to do to run the chat room. Now, in order to deploy this new version, we're going to do the same thing we did yesterday one more time. This will be cd guscost. So we go to somewhere where this folder is that we're trying to send to the server. And if you remember from yesterday, there is a utility that's like SSH, but it's called SCP. It's like, don't log in over the internet, copy a file over the internet securely. So we're going to zip up the files we have, use SCP to send them across the internet to our server, and then unzip them. You remember this from yesterday? Yeah, okay. So the commands to do that are, we ls, so I'm in the guscost folder here. I cd to guscost in careers and code sandbox. I'm going to say tar-czvf chat room ORM. Oh, sorry, archive.zip. You can call this whatever you want. You don't have to call it tar.gz. I'm going to call it archive.zip. And it prints out a ton of stuff. It's going to package up all the node modules and the whole folder. And then if you ls again, you have an archive.zip. We're going to say, actually, what I'm going to do is edit that, or add a new script that's just like the login script, which is a copy script. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that today. I'm sorry. We're just going to copy it. I'll make a copy script when I have time, and we don't use the class time doing it. We're going to do scp-i. You need to find your key. And we need to say the file to copy, archive.zip. And we need to say the server to copy it to, which is the Ubuntu at our Amazon server, which I need to find again. Ubuntu at paste that, and then colon the file you want it to end up as on that server. So where do you want to copy it from? And then the server, colon, where do you want, the file you want to copy it to. This will show a progress bar. And then we can up arrow find our command for SSH, or I have my login script. And we're back in the server. And if we ls here, we should now see, oh, here's the old one, archive.tar.gz. That's from yesterday. I'm going to say rm, which is remove archive.tar, just to clean it up. I'm going to say rm-rf, and be careful with this one, chat room, and complete that, and remove that whole folder. So now we should have just our archive zip. You might have some other files from yesterday. It doesn't really matter. We're going to unextract the contents of this onto our server. So this will be tar cz, or not z. Oh, sorry, xvf. Yeah. So C is compressed, X is uncompressed. And we don't need the Z because we're uncompressing. Archive.zip, and that's all we need. This will expand the whole thing. We could do cd chat room ORM, Now, I think I already ran this, but we need to run our migrations. So we do npx sequelize db:migrate. Oh, shit. That's not good. Our environment variables are screwing up our sequelize migration. Oh man. I really just want to ditch sequelize, and this is horrible. I'm just pretty bummed out right now. We're gonna have to go through and undo all that we did about environment variables. They're a great idea, but sequelize is a shitty idea, and you should never use it. And use whatever you can use to avoid it. There's a thing called type ORM, which is brand new, and everybody's like, we don't know what it's sort of about. It uses TypeScript. Ryan Gauss has been looking into it. He says he loves it, and everybody should use that instead of sequelize. Sequelize should be deleted and destroyed. It's horrible. But yeah, we're gonna have to stick with it, unfortunately, for the rest of the week, because it's too late to turn around on any of it. So, we're just gonna have to soldier on through the rest of this sequelize crap. All right, what we're gonna do is go to the okay. So here's something you can do with GitHub. Here's the archive I made. But you can go to this 3 dots and do undo last commit. And it's gonna basically undo. And I can click on these and see the changes. See, we're setting it back to db config nonsense, blah, 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 blah. And we have our development server file. We're gonna have to change this every single time we deploy, or I don't even know how you're supposed to use this in production. I don't know what kind of people, I'm not going to use anything mean to describe these people, but I don't know what kind of people built this where do you put your production secrets? In a JSON file. How do you make your JSON file? I don't know, you generate it, you check your secrets into GitHub, who knows? Anyway, we're going to have to change this file on the server, or you know what I'm going to do? I don't even care. I'm going to put my database password into the file and check it into GitHub. This is a horrible practice, but don't ever do this. And I would just recommend use something other than sequelize. So you're not forced to make this horrible, horrible choice. All right. I'm going to say cat in my server. I'm going to cat ~/.bash profile. And I'm going to copy these right into the file. Dialects is still Postgres. Host is this. Oh, right. I have to, this is like not the real editor. This is like my GitHub changes. Okay. What? No. Where's the file? Okay, I don't know how to use this thing. Undo last commit. Come on. What do I do next? Unstage. Open file, unstage. Oh, I guess I just unstage. No, I don't unstage. I revert. Revert. I don't know. Minus, revert. Yeah. Okay, we're good. We got it back. Config here. We're going to say host here. We're going to say name is chat room. Database. It's chat room. User is root. Password. I don't want to reinforce bad practice. I'll fill this in on the server. So we'll save this. I'll commit this. What? I don't want that archive in there. All right, commit again. Okay, so it's back up on the server. Really the only change that should have happened since yesterday, it's meaningful, is you're still going to have to go through and change all these, of course, or you're going to have to change, whichever ones are different, because these are my variables, and you can't have your own environment variables with Sequelize because it's a pile of garbage. All right, sorry, I need to chill out and stop. Okay, what happened here? What is even going on? Merge changes. No. Okay. All good? Merge. Oh, geez. Push. Oh, geez. We're in a strange state here now. I'm going to have to go to the command line. That's not the command line. I don't know why that doesn't work in VS Code, but sometimes the abstraction leaks and it breaks. Okay. We'll push, we've got nothing new. We have our config back. The config is everything but the password. We have our server. The server has all this JSON stuff, and we're ready to go. Okay. Now I got to log out of my server again. We got to do the tar thing again. Well, we're almost there. We just up arrow tar czvf. There it is. I deleted the archive, so it's back now. I'm going to say scp this, blah, 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 blah. Looks good. Copy it up. We're going to go log in or do your SSH command if you don't have the login script. And we're going to do rm archive, rmrf, chat room. And this thing. Nope. Oh, I just deleted it. Back. Do the SCP again. Log in again. if you're doing this a lot, you get the hang of it, and you can see you start being able to do it very quickly, because especially if you make the archives in the same place and you just keep overwriting it, all the commands are exactly the same. So you can get into a rhythm with it, which is nice. tar xvf archive. Okay. Now let's try npx sequelize db migrate. No. Using environment development. Aha. Okay, so we put this in the production settings, and we need to get npx production. Node env, it's just a special variable. Okay, so we can do the same kind of thing that we do with our bash profile to at least set the node environment. And we do that by saying export node env equals production. Same kind of thing, it's just another environment variable. And if we run this, now it says authentication failed because I did not commit the password. I'm going to say nano config. I'm going to scroll down to the production section. And I'm going to paste in my extremely secure Postgres password. Control X, yes, all good. All right, let's try that one more time. Boom. All right, so I did this yesterday. So I see no migrations were executed. Database schema was already up to date. So it actually did connect to the database. If we do node server.js, it shouldn't be trying to connect there. It should be in production. Export and production. Server or cat server.js. Oh, we can't use environment here because we've hard coded it to development in the server.js. This is the example they give. Okay. One more time around, why don't we? Server.js. We will say dbconfig, and instead of development, we'll say process.env.node. Like that. And I'm just going to, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to Control AC and just copy and paste this one into the server. But I'll first commit it into GitHub. Code read node server. Okay. So, whoops. Nano server.js. And we'll say, how do you select all in Nano? I wonder. You can just hold down K and it'll get rid of it. Or Control K, sorry. And then Command V, and we'll paste the whole thing. And And then Control X. Yes. All right. Oh no, it was uncommented when I ended the change, and now it's getting the same error as it did yesterday. Last change. Okay, well, after all this, I think maybe one more time we'll do a final deploy. Hopefully everything will work, and then you should be able to skip all of this nonsense and do it the one time. Server's running and no errors. Amazing. Comment out the broken line. So the short version of yesterday and today is we tried to deploy this Express server with SQLize. SQLize somehow, when you do the magic setup with the migrations and all of that stuff we did way back, you can't use those models compatibly with this old development way where you wipe out the database every time. It just explodes and the error is buried deep in some line of SQLize nonsense code. The internet doesn't really know about this problem and was not able to help. So we had to basically say, well, we can't do this magic DB thing. We're stuck in migration land forever. And by the way, every time I use this more, it gets more and more frustrating. I hear nothing but the same from other people who use it, and SQLize is just bad. Use type ORM. If you want to use an ORM, I basically am recommending this having never tried it because there is no way that it could be as bad as SQLize. And I think it's pretty good. Ryan has tried it. He says it's good. So we'll try this. Much better ORM for Node.js, apparently. We're stuck not using it today, but that's what I'd recommend. Okay, server is running, and we should be able to connect to this by making a small change in Nginx. So this runs, if we look at the bottom of this file, let me make sure everything's up on GitHub. So this is the final version of the archive. I'm gonna archive it once more and then save it in the actual place so that you don't have to do the first step with the tar. And I'll call it the right thing. Chat room orm.tar.gz. Okay. Code include archive of chat room orm. So this means you can skip the first step if you want to just SCP this to your server and try it out. Okay, log back in. Now, our server, if we look at the bottom, it's running on the local machine at port 8081. We never opened port 8081 in the security groups, and we actually don't have to because we already have Nginx running. Nginx is listening for changes, and it's going to be able to redirect to this server. But first, let's have a break, and then let's set up our encryption on our server, which is very easy with Nginx, and then let's hook it all up to this server. Sorry, the environment variable stuff just didn't work. Systemd is going to let us run the server automatically whenever we restart it. and Nginx is what we've already installed. So we might not have time to go through all these slides, but we'll, damn it, we're gonna get this stupid thing running by the end of the day. All right, 15-minute break. How are you doing, Dana? Having a good, fun time there, hopefully.
might be able to. Invitee.
Okay, I think I can change the length of it here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, look. That looks like a meeting.
Edit? Yeah. Cool. 5 to 6.
Yay.
All right.
Thanks.
Cool. Okay,
Okay.
so Anna, I have 3 to 4 open on Saturday. Yeah.
Free for all of them. I get out.
Oh. I can do Sunday afternoon too, or whatever. We can do next weekend too, or actually Friday.
Wait, that's Saturday. Oh my God. Well, I can do that on Saturday.
Yeah. Okay. And Friday actually we don't have class, so that's another Friday evening. Tomorrow. No, Friday. Check that link in student resources. Should be a link just to my calendar with all the available times right there. All right, where are these people? Started, I'm gonna run out of time.
I think I'm going to take the opportunity to take care of some things and
Cool.
catch up.
Sounds good.
Okay.
See you Saturday.
Yeah, for sure. And tomorrow. Great. Awesome. Thank you very much. Like, really.
Yeah. All right. I think we could probably get started with. So who are we missing? Elizabeth, Kelly, Caitlin, Karen's over there. Just give it a couple minutes. All right. I think we have to get started. We don't have a whole lot of time left. I think like the first thing I just before any of this, I feel like I'm losing a lot of people and sort of it's getting kind of frustrating, and I know it's overwhelming. There's a whole lot of things. I just want to say like this stuff is not like you're not expected to know this. This is a lot of this is for exposure. We're trying to show you what it's like to run all the things that are involved for actually running a real server. If you don't want to deal with all of this on your own, it's perfectly fine to do a session to set your whole server up and get help with that. You would be doing this at a job too. I think like you should really understand that like if you have like your attitude and your willingness to do the work, everybody's willingness to actually show up today and do this work, and try it. It counts for a whole lot more in the real world than like knowing what these things are or already, being able to just get it right the first time or at all without asking for help. If you have a good work ethic and if you actually put in the work, your colleagues will help you. They'll want to help you. And like, I have to say, like, I would always choose to work with or to hire a person who has a good attitude and brings like a willingness to do the work and to try and to struggle with it over somebody who already knows whatever nonsense we're currently doing today, because this stuff will change. This is not going to be the last way to set up a server ever or whatever it is. And it's not even close to the easiest. A lot of this is stuff that you're not going to really need in your capstone, probably maybe in your first job. So, a lot of this is for exposure and just sort of like understand that it's a lot of it is of the success that you will have in your career is going to be based not on knowing this or getting it right. It's going to be based on just your willingness to be doing what you're doing, to show up every day, to try the work, to ask for help, to be professional and interact with other people. Those are the skills which are actually make a team able to work together for a long period of time. And if you're able to do that, then you're going to learn. You're going to pick up whatever it is you need to pick up. And that stuff, whatever you're working on, gets easier. That's all. I mean, I think like it's not, I don't know. I don't know if anybody here is going to want to go do server administration and networking and HTTPS in their jobs. But if you want to, you absolutely can. It might take you years of studying this kind of stuff to do that. But, all kinds of organizations and colleagues and employers are going to be willing to meet you there and to sort of help you along on your path to that. Anyway, so I think like, let's just get this working. Let's just finish it up. But don't be freaked out or stressed out if you look back at this week and you're like, man, there's so many things that we just did. How are you going to remember all of this? The answer is you're not, and that's okay. It's fine. Hey. So I just got through a whole speech about how, oh man, I'll sort of recap it. It's like, say it again. don't be overwhelmed by this week. There's so many things. A lot of it's for exposure. You're not going to be expected to remember this stuff, all of it or most of it. This is another specialization like databases. And your willingness to show up and your willingness to work on it and your willingness to ask for help and to work with other people is going to count way more than knowing any one of these things or all of them. And if like you think I'm not talking about you, I absolutely am. If you think I'm like, oh, those are just the people who understand it, I'm talking about everybody. So like this is absolutely true that you can be successful in your job without knowing the first thing about this and with taking years to get good at this stuff. It's perfectly fine. So that's all. That's the summary. And you don't ever have to get good at this stuff. This is server administration and maintenance. We're trying to get a broad exposure to a lot of topics, and you know, it's a lot. So we're gonna try to finish it all up mostly this week. I think tomorrow we're gonna do like sort of easy mode. We're gonna be like, it's like in math class where they're like, here's a calculator. There's an invention that we're gonna tell you about now. So a lot of this is hard mode, and a lot of this is there's a whole lot of things we're doing. So just you know, thanks for sticking with it for 3 days now, and we'll finish this up. Okay. So we have a server, we have Nginx running, which is sort of our pre-server in front of everything. It'll do our encryption. The next thing to set up is that encryption. It's very, very easy these days to set up the encryption. You can go to a site called let'sencrypt.org, and there's just a tutorial. It's basically paste in a couple things into your server and let it run, and then you'll be encrypted. This, of course, is assuming that we've set up our EC2 thing, we've connected our domain name to the server, and we're able to see this Nginx page. So when I go to gus.best, I see Nginx, welcome to Nginx. And at this point, we should be ready to set up the encryption. As long as our security group has the port 80 and port 443 going open and going to this box, this server, we will be fine. We know we have port 80. You should have done both when we set that up. So we're ready to do the encryption. We can say get started and just follow the instructions. There's a little something, 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 something. It says basically visit the certbot site to get customated instructions, etc. So you answer this. It's a little confusing, but you say my website is running Nginx. We just set that up on Ubuntu 18.04. And it says this, comfort with the command line. I don't know if anybody has comfort with the command line, but we've been using it, so we're gonna use it. We have an HTTP website already on open port 80. Well, that's this. We've got this running. This works. And we need hosted on a server you can access via SSH with the ability to Sudo. We've done all of that. We have all of that. Okay, so, and then because we answered these two, it gives us instructions which says SSH in. All right, done. I think I'm already in. Yep, SSH in, done. Add certbot PPA. So you just run all of these things in a row, I guess. Sudo apt-get update. Apt-get is the same as apt. It's just apt is a newer, shorter version. I don't know if we really need to do that because we did it a while back. Okay, sudo apt-get install software properties common. I'm pasting them one after the other into the command line. Apt add repository universe. So we're adding a new place to download software from and a PPA, which is a thing for downloading software. This is the PPA for packages supporting by Debian Let's Encrypt team and backported for Ubuntu. Press enter to continue. Yes, that is what I want. And then the last one, sudo apt-get update again. Okay, I guess now that we have the new repository, we we update again.
So all this is just after we work the server, the chat app.
This is so that we can, yeah, this is also that we can get the chat app on a website, a domain that we just bought, with a real server running, a real database running, a real reverse proxy. That's what Nginx is running. That's a thing that sort of goes in front of the server and handles encryption and compression and things like that. And getting all of that encrypted then, so that when you connect to this server, your communications with that server are secret and nobody can snoop on your communications. And possibly more importantly, nobody can basically put a malicious router in the tech garden somewhere and say, pretend to be my website and say, hey, I'm your website. If you're going to HTTPS and it actually checks out and you've set up your certificates correctly, that's pretty much impossible to do. You can't really fake that because you need the correct certificates, and we're setting them up right now. So that's why it shows in the browser either this little lock here, this tiny little lock icon, if it's a secure site, or it'll say not secure if it's not. When we haven't done this setup we're doing right now, you don't actually know that it's the server you're talking to is the actual server it claims to be. It could be someone pretending to be it and stealing your credit card information or password from a malicious server they put in the tech garden somewhere or whatever. So this is pretty important for having a website on the internet in production. And I think things like the Apple App Store, they might not even let your app connect to not secure URLs. I'm not even sure, but all kinds of things will be not, it won't be that compatible with a lot of stuff because it's really fundamentally insecure until we do this. Yeah, and encryption. So, and a secret tunnel. So all communications between each client and the server are completely, you can see how much data there is roughly, but you can't see what any of that data is unless you're one of the server or the client in that server or that client connecting to it. Okay. So this is for your server, right? So right. So Cloudflare and the secure the certificate that you put on Cloudflare, that's so that when you send someone your JavaScript, your front end, your client front end, they also can trust that nobody meddled with the JavaScript and is going to put some malicious code that runs in the browser. So it's the same exact reason. I don't know if it's as important that it's a secret that it's sending it, because that content is usually static. So it's just the same content for everybody. But in your server, there might be secrets, there might be sensitive data, there might be passwords, and you definitely want that to be secret and also guarantee it. So we're doing the same thing for the server here. Okay, so we got through all of these. I'm going to copy this thing next. Install certbot. All right, go for it. Yes. And this these Let's Encrypt stuff, it's compatible with a lot of stuff that's easy. It's easier to set up than this. This is the plain setup on a plain server, the real deal, the real world, except for the servers off in the cloud somewhere. And but yeah, this is full. We're doing the full thing. I think Heroku and a lot of other options will basically let you say, use a certificate, and they just have a nice default way to do that. I think. All right, so we did this one. Either get and install your certificates or just get a certificate. Well, we'll get and install. So we're going to say sudo certbot --nginx. Enter. Now it says enter email address, and this should be the same email address you signed up the website, you registered the website under. And then you have to agree to their terms of service. Because I'm on a stream, I'm going to officially command and click and follow this link. Not found. Oh, maybe it's the dot at the end. Here it is. Subscriber agreement. Blah, 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 blah. Very good. Agreed. Would you be willing to share your email address with the Electronic Frontier Foundation? I'm not sure what that's for, so I'm going to say no. Maybe it's okay. I don't know. No names were found in your configuration files. Please enter in your domain names. Okay, this is important. It's all important, but we need to send it the name that we bought, the name that we're going to claim to be. It's gus.best here. And it's just that. There's no, you don't need HTTP in there or any slash anything. Okay, and then it just does a whole bunch of stuff. Performing the following challenges. Challenge for gus.best, waiting for verification, cleaning up challenges. Please choose whether or not to redirect HTTP traffic to HTTPS. Removing HTTP access. This is a good idea. You probably should do this. So I'm going to say to redirect. As long as you haven't been using Nginx for different things before this point, this is what it'll set it up for you, and it won't mess with your existing. I mean, there is no existing configuration, so we're all set. And that's it. So there's one more step on the site. It says test automatic renewal. So you can copy this just to be sure that it's going to automatically renew your certificate. So we'll try that. But that's it. So our site now should be secure. And if we go right back to the internet and say, well, this was not secure up here, right? If we reload it, it's going to redirect right to HTTPS. We get the lock. We're all good. That's the whole thing. So I'll bet you thought that was going to be a little harder, but that part's actually very easy since this Let's Encrypt thing was created. This is a free, you used to have to buy a certificate, then upload it somewhere, then like do all kinds of steps, and each vendor would have different steps. And then I don't know who this is, but they're like a foundation, which is like, this is ridiculous. It's putting a barrier in front of making the internet secure. So they're like, this is worth setting up a free one that anybody can use, because they absolutely should. Yeah. And it verifies that you own that domain by doing this challenge, whatever that protocol is with the challenges, Acme, something or other. It just works. You just copy that. And you have to have Nginx running before this, but that's it. Okay, so we have Nginx, we have encryption. Let's connect Nginx. Let's tell Nginx now that we want to forward the traffic onto our node program, because we have Express running. We're going to want to connect to the database, and we got to wire all that together now, so that someone connects to they look up the site gus.best, they get the IP address that we set up, they go to that IP address, they hit Nginx. Nginx says, wait, you should go to secure HTTP. Okay, they redirect back to that. And then Nginx says, okay, we're going to hand you off to another port internally, and that's where your Express application runs. And then that connects to your database. So we're going to draw out a full map of this tomorrow, but it's a lot. There's a lot of pieces. The server, this is for the server. So this is the API or the server that connects to your database. The HTML files and the JavaScript files, if you're serving those from GitHub pages or from Amazon has a thing called S3 where you can put files and then for serving them. And typically that's how you would serve your JavaScript that you run on the client. So your React application or your jQuery. And I wish we had some more time today. I was going to do a whiteboard diagram of some of this with the words, but we'll do it tomorrow, I think. Okay, we're very close though. We need to go to our Nginx and say, hey, go over to this Express application. And that should be the last link in the chain here. So we're going to do nano, sorry. We won't do vim. We'll do nano /etc /nginx sites available. So this is where the Let's Encrypt setup places your default configuration /default. And this file has a whole bunch of settings and configurations and stuff. And I'm going to scroll all the way down to somewhere like here. So there's this one, and then there's SSL configuration. So all the way down here, you should see something about here we go. So this try files, this is telling it to just send some files or a 404, and that's why we might see 404. Do we see the 404? No, we still see the welcome page. Okay. So yeah, there's just a whole bunch of crazy Nginx config here. I'm not going to go into like what a lot of this is, but it's different ways you can tell your pre-server, your proxy, reverse proxy server to do things like encryption, to redirect certain requests to one place or another, or to do the security, the encryption that we're doing. Okay, so we can get rid of this whole line. And the way you can do that is with Control K and then hit enter. And inside here, we're going to say proxy pass HTTP ://localhost :8081. And that's where our Express server is running. And this is just, you know, Nginx is all about having these things which are like, there's a million of these and you look them up on the internet and they're like, Nginx proxy this and set a header and do this. It can do all kinds of stuff with your traffic. And it's a very weird kind of whole language. And, you know, people who do DevOps for a living are like, they know a lot about this and all of this stuff probably by heart. I had to look a lot of it up whenever I do it. We actually generate Nginx configurations sometimes. So there's like a template which will spit out an Nginx configuration at work, and it's like, you know, it inserts different variables, and it gets really crazy. Whoops, no. Okay, save modified buffer, Control X, yes. Oh no, I didn't do sudo. Crap. All right, Control X, no. We'll do it again. Sudo nano sites available default. And some of this stuff was put in there by the Let's Encrypt. See, there's a gus.best managed by certbot. That's what we, okay. Oh, I have to delete the line above it. And there's a semicolon at the end of the line. All right, Control X. Yes. And we're going to do sudo systemctl restart Nginx. and that should restart it. And now we get a different page when we reload it. It says 502 bad gateway. Well, that's good. I mean, it's something different, but what it means is that we haven't actually run our server. We're not running our server. So there's nothing at 8081, and when it tries to connect to it, it can't see it. So if we do node server, no, where am I? CD chat room, node server.js. Ah. Do I have to re-export this? Export. Okay. So server is running, and if we go back here, we see our actual node server running on our actual website, proxied through with the actual Nginx, through decrypted and re-encrypted and everything. And if we do, what is it, messages, we get our messages. SQLized database error. Oh no, we get SQLized database error. Wonderful. I'm so happy. Now this is DevOps week, so this is the problem of the backend developers or the server developers. It's really not our problem. It's working, it's connected to it. We see the error. And I feel like that's good enough for today. So let's not try to fix it again, but let's do one more thing. Let's configure this so that every time the server starts, it's going to automatically run this all the time. And to do that, we're going to use something called Systemctl. And this, I think, is the last thing for today. One of the last things for this week, the last gnarly server thing for this week. So thank you for sticking with it. Systemctl is it's like the first process that starts when your Linux runs, and it manages all these other processes. All that stuff we saw in when we ran PS, AUX or whatever, all of those huge amounts of processes. Systemctl is, I think, the first process that starts, and it starts up all the other processes, the ones that run automatically. It's somewhat controversial, but there's like people who like it and we're like, yeah, put Systemctl and everything. And then there's a lot of people who are like anti-Systemctl. There's different factions, but it's very much a part of Ubuntu, Red Hat, SUSE Linux, Amazon Linux. Like many, or if not most, of the Linux versions use Systemctl. So it's pretty ubiquitous. Like I use it a lot for, well, not anymore, but I did a year or two ago. And we still use it at our company. I just don't touch it very much these days. Okay, so all you need to run your server now is a script file. So we're going to do a bash script, just like our, where we saved our connect over SSH script. I'm going to copy this whole thing. And this was back when I was like, oh, we're going to put the environment variables in the bash profile and then SQLize will work, and it didn't. So instead of this source here, source is a way to say just import everything in this file, even though we didn't log in, because this normally runs when we log in, bash profile. But we want the same variables from systemd land, which is like no user. That's like deep in the system, So we have to actually tell it to use those variables or whatever we want to do. In this case, all we need to do is export node env equals production. That's what I've been running to get it to use the production and do its SQLize stuff. We're going to say, I think it's called chat room ORM, not chat room app. We're going to just install a package globally in this script. Why not? npm install -g forever. In case we don't have it already, and in case this user doesn't have it, whatever system user this is, we'll just install it. It doesn't hurt to install it again, I suppose. It's gonna run npm install in this folder every time, just to make sure it has whatever packages are new. And then it's gonna run forever server.js. This is just like running node server.js or node mon server.js, but this is sort of more of a package for running things in production, basically. It just basically restarts it every time it's broken. Systemd can do this for us, but this is sort of, you don't need systemd to do this. I'm only demonstrating it because it's a standard Linux server DevOps type of thing. So we're sort of redundantly, setting this thing up. And a lot of this is basically overkill, but it should get it running every time we start the computer. All right, so I'm just gonna copy this whole thing, go to the terminal, say, I'll say nano tilde slash start underscore server dot sh. And this will be our start script. I'm going to paste, Command V. That's the whole thing. Control X, yes. Good. I'm going to do chmod plus X tilde slash start server. Okay, and now if we run tilde slash start server, we should see it do all the things we said. So set the thing, it's installing some stuff, and then it's gonna hopefully end up with starting the server. And as long as this works, uh-oh, permission denied. Oh no. Oh boy. Missing write access to user lib node modules. Maybe I need to do sudo. I think when you install an npm package globally on Ubuntu, you need sudo to do that. Did we even talk about what sudo is? Yeah, it's like act as root or the most privileged user for this one command. Okay, cool. So it does all this stuff and then says server is running. So that's good. We're ready to go. Now the second half of a systemd service is basically telling it, okay, run this script. Go somewhere and actually run this script. So there's a second kind of file called a service file or a systemd file, and you save this somewhere. Usually it's lib /lib/systemd/system, and then the name of the file is whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it express. Why don't we call it chat room to be a little more, specific. And then when you say exec start here, this is where you put your script, where your script is. This is at home/ubuntu/start server.sh. That's the file we just created. And this will restart it too. So we'll restart double in case forever we'll try to restart it, and then this will try to restart it. And the rest of this is like loaded after certain modules and before, and there's all kinds of systemd crap if you want to get into that. But this should be all we need. So we'll copy this and we will make the file right here that contains it. So sudo, we're going to need sudo for this one. Sudo nano lib systemd system /chatroom.service. Paste this, Control X, yes. And that's pretty much the whole thing. We don't need to make it executable. We can do right away sudo systemctl start chat room. And because we named it chatroom.service, this is the convention that it uses. And systemctl, that's what we use for Nginx and everything. This is just the way to interact with these systemd services. Okay, well, it says nothing, but that's because it's running in the background somewhere. we do sudo systemctl status chat room, and it prints out logs and it tells us it's running and it's when it started. All this nonsense about which group it's part of. Linux, this is some Linux stuff, main process ID. I don't know what task exactly means, but the green is good. You want to see the green there. That means it's running. And this is the log. So we see our server is running log right at the bottom. So I'm going to do Control C to quit. And that means, just like before, it's running. We haven't actually set it up to run every time, though. There's one more step, and we have to do sudo systemctl enable chat room. And this says basically do it whenever it starts up. So to demonstrate, I'll do sudo reboot. And it will close, it closes our SSH because the server shuts down. And if we go to here and we reload, it's like gonna be stuck for a little while because it's trying to connect and there's nothing at the other end to answer. So our server's rebooting. One of the things that you would do in more kind of advanced uses of DevOps and things is have 2 or more servers and have the load balancer. This is a reason to have one more thing in front, which is not in the free tier. So we're not going to do it. We're not going to have everyone set it up. But if you pay for a load balancer and you have it redirect to one of several servers and you have it check which ones are up and running, then you can reboot them whenever you want and it'll go to the other ones. Or if one breaks, you can fix it and you get a whole lot more reliability of the whole system because like you don't see this where the whole thing, the server just stops answering requests every time you restart it or if it breaks. But now we're back and look, I didn't have to do anything and the server's running. So this is it. This is the whole thing. We've set up our yeah, I've got about 10 minutes. Let's draw this on the whiteboard. How about? But that's pretty cool. It's actually working. Everything's locked there. It's secure. It's still broken because it's stupid sequelize. All right. So let's just. So let's just draw out what is going on for the whole app and kind of all the technologies that we've been using and where they are.
Also, all of the steps, like all the steps, how everything just
How the request goes to
so
here.
everything higher.
You mean how to set it up or where the request goes as it travels through the internet? Okay, the second one I think I'm going to do now, but the first one, I'll make a summary document, I guess, with the end-to-end setup and every command I've run this whole time. There's some of it will be like go buy a domain name and set these records, and there's no commands for that that are the same because depending on who you buy it from. But okay, yeah, I'll make a guide for this, and again, if you want to sign up for a one-on-one, we can do this whole setup. If you want to go this way, use an Amazon server. It's once you have it working like this, you don't have to touch most of this. It just works. You have to upgrade it. We can show how to upgrade it, but that's easy. And deploying is not even that hard. And then CI and stuff like that makes it easier. So there's a lot of setup, but once you've got it working, and all the pieces you understand them, you only have one server, it's not going to break that often, or hardly ever, hopefully never break. You won't have to figure out or fix it. But that doesn't always work. Okay, so we have a web browser. Right? We have this web browser. Now this could be an iPhone or an Android phone or another computer somewhere else. You know, it doesn't have to be, but for most, most of the time we're talking about jQuery, React. I'm just going to put these words in here because I feel like jQuery, HTML, CSS, React. What else is a web browser thing? I mean, there's Angular, there's Vue, there's all kinds of other frameworks. But these are all like, front-end stuff. This is web page, JavaScripts, things that run on the client. And this all runs in one place. The first thing it does, when you say I want to go to gus.best, well, first thing, before the zero thing, before it does anything, it downloads the web page. So wherever you go to your Cloudflare or whatever it is, you're going to connect to that and you're going to download the web page. Then you have downloaded your HTML, your React, all that stuff. Your browser says, okay, I have this downloaded. And iPhone, it would skip that step because you already got the app. You got the app from the App Store. It's the same thing. Going to the page, downloading the page. It's like getting the app. That's all. But now it has the app. It started up the app. It's running the JavaScript. It's doing whatever it's doing. And it's going to say, I'm going to connect, log in, or get some data. So it's going to say, I want to connect to my APIs, gus.best/messages. Okay, let's say it's loading in messages. You've already logged in, whatever. So it's going to go to what's called the DNS server first. It's going to go here to say, hey, I'm looking for gus.best. This is where I'm trying to connect to. Where is that? This server is going to send back, 50.51.52. It's not actually that, but it's going to send back those numbers, which is the IP address of that we set up in our DNS. On Namecheap, when we bought the name, we set up all that record stuff so that when we ask one of the DNS servers, this isn't necessarily Namecheap server, but they're affiliated and they are part of that, whatever. These are DNS servers.
So in the DNS box, you would put like data records and stuff?
Yeah, and we're just telling Namecheap like, hey, I'd like these A records to be on the DNS system. And they go off to the global servers all over the world that have all of these mappings of who, where do we go to connect to gus.best or, everything, google.com, whatever. And the number comes back, right? So then the browser says, okay, I have an IP address I want to connect somewhere. So it goes and it routes, it says, I'm going to this IP address. There's a whole protocol for how that data works its way through the internet. It's crazy. But eventually, you make that request to your server. Let's make the server really big. There's a lot of stuff. Okay, so let's say we'll say this is 50. Blah, 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 blah. 50. But this is going to be port. Now the port is determined by, in a browser, whether you did HTTP or HTTPS. So if you did HTTP, it would be 8. Yeah. We set up automatically, when we did our Let's Encrypt, we have Nginx here. I'm going to make it a little box inside of the big box. I'm going to call this Amazon EC2. But this could be any server. This could be a Raspberry Pi running in your garage. It just has to be on the internet and have an IP address that you can set up as the IP address for your list. So we go to here, Nginx is listening on this port. So it has like a little list. The request goes to here. And we've set up a thing where Nginx, it won't send that request any farther because we've requested it on port 80. And we have not done any of the protocol that's necessary for the secure connection. We're doing regular HTTP. And Nginx just immediately, because we ran that encryption magic stuff, it set up some rules in Nginx to say, hey, if anybody tries to connect on port 80, just say, no, go back and try again with, and it says 301, I think. Act 3 anything, if the code is 3 anything, there's a response code. We learned about HTTP responses and all that. This means redirects. 3XX is always a redirect. So we say, no, go to 443 or HTTP. It's actually going to just say redirect to HTTPS. Because this understands that to be 443, which is the HTTPS. So let's just imagine, okay, that's out of the way. The browser follows this redirect. It says, okay, I'm going to try a third thing. I'm going to connect to HTTPS. You might have to erase this because there's not enough room. So let me take a picture of it first. Yeah. Or is there a way we could fit the second request? Let's try to fit it all in. And how much time? Not that much. Oh, hey, Dana, we're drawing a diagram on the whiteboard. I'll take a picture of it if you're still there. Bye. EC2, and we connect here. We say connect into Nginx, and we say change the IP address to be 5.5.5.5. Okay, and Nginx responds right away to say, nope, 301 HTTPS. Right now, the browser says, okay, I need to try this other protocol, which means another port. So I don't know if it looks up the DNS again. Or if it's already, like, I already looked up where gus.best is. I know I'm connecting to the same IP address. Or it already has the record of where that is. So it connects back on 443. And now Nginx is like, okay, this is okay. Nginx is also listening on 443. So it's listening on 443 and it says this one's okay. And it does all of the decryption. Decrypts, I'll put a little key. Very bad at drawing. That is a key. And then it hands it off to the next thing, which is going to be localhost. 8,000 or 8081. And here's where we have our express thing running. And this is listening on 8081. So express answers that. It says, oh, a request. It reads the request. All of the data makes its way all the way through there. Express looks at the request and says, hey, somebody's trying to get the messages. Okay, well, what do I have to do now? I have to connect to Postgres. So it goes out of the EC2, it goes to Postgres box. And this is after it ran all its own code and said, oh, I built a query from the ORM and stupid SQL has told it to, whatever, to run a get or a select star from or select columns from whatever, done all the SQL. This is going to connect at, RDS, whatever, .amazon, colon, whatever that is, :5432. And this is listening at 5432. So there's a lot of this is where all the ports are kind of used, is because there's so many things being chained together. And in this case, there's stuff on this box running on all these different ports. And this box, though, is firewalled so that someone from the outside, the browser here, can't actually just say, oh, connect right to 8081, because our security group doesn't allow that. You have to go through only the ones which are allowed, which is actually 22. So that's our SSH. That's over here. And that's like, a developer can connect to 22. Right? But, oops. Confusing that. But that's another port. So we have 22 for developers to connect. And this is going to check that you have the right password. Nginx is going to redirect everything on 80 and say, try again. Yes, it's going to allow stuff on 443, and it's going to say, I'm going to forward everything in this request along to 8081, because we set up that one proxy pass rule. That's what that means. Proxy, act as a proxy, and pass it along to this other. This connects to the database, and this says, select, and you get some record. So those go back, Express accepts them. That's not really a port. That's, the response to the request. It's a socket, but it's not a port. Anyway, this gets the response. This sends it back over here. And Nginx sends it back along to the ground. So that's really the whole thing. We have our servers running at least three kind of important things. One is Nginx, one is Express, and one is SSHD all the time. And we used the whole magic let's encrypt thing to write some magic stuff into Nginx to do all that. This is like a very complicated piece, but it's all pretty much magic. And it's because we're answering requests at Gus. Like it sends a challenge to say, hey, are you the server that you're claiming to be at this site? Because we own it, because we've set up the DNS, it goes to our server, we're running the magic thing, and it just works. So, all right, that's about it. Hopefully that helps make it a little bit, less intimidating, but it's still a whole lot of stuff, right? So I'm going to get a picture of this and post it in the channel. Maybe we should make a draw.io version of this kind of thing.
That would be great.
And really, this might be the only thing you actually have to remember or should remember from this whole week. This picture here. Cool. I'm going to label these in order. This is one. Oh, with a different color. So 1, 2, 3. No, sorry. 3, 4, This is. All right, have a good evening.
Thank you, guys.
Well, both of these are both of these pieces. 3, 4, 5, 6.
Just gonna hide.
All right.
I'll put it this one. Thanks.
Gonna post this picture in the channel.
Thank you, guys. Thanks.
Bye. Good night.
No,
Nope.
you did a good job teaching your part.
Well, it was not easy, and I feel like we took on a lot for a week, and everyone was like,
lucky last time with the jobs.
everyone was like, just do Heroku, and like, don't even, that there's something to be said for that, but
Okay.
it's,
I think it's still valuable. It's not
Yeah.
like it's,
and we
not
can,
like it's-
I gotta talk to Alice, but maybe we should just do Heroku tomorrow, because we were gonna do some other stuff, but maybe we should just do that tomorrow. I think it would only take one day. Okay.
So this is
from here, this book, but I was wondering if I could borrow.
I have no idea. It's from that bookshelf. Yeah, I think like that might be like a lending library. Yeah. So I think you should be able to. Yeah.
I can't imagine people come in every day and look for that book. Although, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, I'm still on. Bye. Bye.